It's less than 48 hours to the end of the year. People are moving in and out of their locations. Seme, the Lagos international route leading to neighboring Benin Republic, is without exception. The axis is lined up with over 10 checkpoints, manned only by men of the Nigerian police. Here, extortion seems to be the order of the day. At the border post, the presence of our crew aggravates the mandatory no passport, no crossing order. Within the fence, these trucks in their numbers await the reopening of the border as they've been trapped here for months, with some of its content already decomposing.
You see, when something is done excessively, sometimes you might not have good meaning. They started fine. Yes, border drill. We appreciated it. Even those of us that are working here, it teaches Cotonou that Nigeria can stand. But the thing is, after a while, maybe after 1 month, they will have allowed us to evacuate this one here and still continue with what they want to do. They are saying they want the container to come to Nigeria in the original form. We, the stakeholders here, we are ready to do it in the original form. Let them open the border for that to commence.
In Idiroko community in Ogun State, officers are carrying out the directive of the border drill. Residents, however, speak on the search for petroleum products and the impact it's having on their daily living.
I'm a technician, so they are selling 1 liter of petrol, 250. For those who are trying to go and buy it from here, already there, 250. You see, this market is dull. Everywhere is dull.
It's market day in Jibia border town of Katsina State, Nigeria's northwest region. Jibia is one of the main land borders in the state, which also has Maya Adua, Dankama, Baban Mutum, and Kongolum borders. Here, there is strict compliance of the directive of no sale of petroleum products 20 kilometers from the border area. Residents, however, decry the collapse of small-scale businesses.
Mu yan bakin boda ne muna sai da mu shiga Nijar mu sawo mu zo mu ba su kuɗi mu wuce ko ba haka ba mu sai da abin da za mu ba su mu haike da wake ne riɗi gyada mu haike mu zo mu saida kwastan da aka ce su tsare muke ba su kuɗi tare da soja da kwastan da soja da immigration da manpol dan sanda kenan.
All our just small markets and the small business here in our communities has been collapsed, especially on that stopping transportation of fuel 20 kilometers to the border site.
Despite the long existing border closure, goods, particularly imported rice, spaghetti, cooking oil, second-hand clothing, and even drugs still find their way through various illegal routes. While Nigerians await further directive on the operation come January 2020, observers are hoping that farmers use this grace period to expand on their level of production.
To take us further on that, let's welcome Mr. Paul Alaje, who is an economist. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Nigeria's border closure has caught the attention of ECOWAS, and now ECOWAS has decided to do something, set up a committee to look at all the sides of the issues. How do you react to that, first of all?
First, it's obvious that demand side is being affected by most ECOWAS countries. Nigeria is a country with population, and when you consider the economy of the entire West Africa, Nigeria GDP is responsible for 66% of that. So without Nigeria, West African economy will be badly affected. The remaining countries in West Africa, apart from Nigeria, is only responsible for 33% thereabout. So some of their producers, who are they going to sell to if Nigeria decides to close the land borders? In this case, Nigeria is not saying we are closing to the rest of the world. Nigeria is saying we are closing our land borders.
In other words, our immediate neighbors.
Yes, our immediate neighbors. So if you want to sell commodities to Nigeria, because Nigeria is selling to you, you have to go through the seaport or other means of importation, which means government will collect accurate revenue, unlike what was going on land borders. So that itself means some of those countries we have to battle with reduced production, because when producers produce commodities and they don't have someone to consume them, it's going to have implication on output, it's going to have implication on profitability, it's going to have provision on job creation. So we've said what happened on one side, what is happening to them. What is happening to us? Nigeria also, some producers also produce for the rest of West Africa. Of course, we had the number that could be consumed by Nigerians, that if they don't export to the rest of West Africa, Nigeria may still pick that up. So what we expect is that there will be excess of production in some commodity, which have implication on prices. Nigeria that also consumes some of the commodities that is coming from outside Nigeria. For instance, why did we start border closure? Presidency had mentioned to us that it was to curb importation of rice. Recall that in 2017, government had mentioned, or 18, I beg your pardon, government had mentioned that Nigeria has reached almost 95% of rice production, and Nigeria is about sufficient in 95%. But what we noticed from research is that Nigerian neighbor seems to have increased consumption of rice by the exact gap Nigeria claimed to have now produced locally, which means people might be importing, and Nigeria is not capturing those importation in terms of revenue. So government said, what we're going to do is to perhaps close the border partially. That was in August. I think October or November, then there was an outright closure of all items into Nigeria. That's without implication, because the immediate gap of what smuggling was covering in Nigeria will now have implication on our price system. There will be too much money chasing fewer goods, because we are not just producing enough. We see depend on our neighbors for some commodities, some of them food, some of them non-food items. So you saw what happened to inflation. MBS just released that Nigeria has closed 12% inflation mark. For me and for our organization, this is what we bother about. For every 1 naira ENs, 1 naira UN and 1 naira IN, we have to spend in 4 ways. The first one is marginal propensity to consume. Those items that we consume locally, that are made in Nigeria, that we consume. The second one is marginal propensity to save. What proportion of that money are you going to put in a bank account to save for investment or future use? The third one is marginal rate of taxation. What proportion of that money are you using to pay taxes? The last one, and perhaps the most important one, is marginal propensity to import, which is the most important one. Now, is it that we now have to import more? Because some of these items that were coming through land borders, some of them we have to go through maybe seaports, then we pay more, and we are seeing the implication on our inflation.
So when you talk about inflation rates, can we really pin that on this border closure?
Look at it. From border closure, partial closure, from September, October, thereabout, we've had consistent increase in inflation. What else changed? So CBN is coming, or Monetary Policy Committee is saying the way to solve this problem is perhaps to increase cash reserve ratio or cash reserve requirement on 500 basis points from 22.5 to about 27.5%. But was it a monetary problem, or it was a trade problem? The conversation around increasing or reducing that was actually a trade problem. So for me, if you say, can we pin it? It is obvious. It is obvious because pre-policy period, there was no such consistent increase in inflation. Now, inflation may increase and reduce. As we speak, we have a threshold of 12%, which Monetary Policy Committee has said that it's very important we don't go beyond that. As we speak, we have passed 12%. Recall that the last released figures was 11.98% thereabout. But when you've crossed 12%, you have a lot to worry about.
Right. Now, pardon me, I'm still at that point where you said, Nigeria accounts for 66% of West Africa's economy.
GDP, yes.
GDP, right.
Yes.
And you see that there are 15 countries in ECOWAS. So if one country accounts for 66%, and the remaining 14 account for just about 33%.
Yes.
So that perhaps lends credence to that feeling that Nigeria is a giant in some sense. But you look at it on the other side, that 66% will also be affected, in quotes, the demand. I mean, you talked about trying to meet that demand, because whether we like it or not, the demand is still there. So looking at this, if you were to weigh this in terms of pros and cons for the nation, where would you tilt towards?
Now,
Pro
where I would tilt
con?
towards is I will support Project Nigeria. Now, before border closure, there are things that should have been done. Recall that President Buhari's administration is not the first administration to close border or that have attempted to close border. Military regime, there were several border closures, even civilian regime. There were partial ban of some sites. Recall there was a time where milk importation was banned or partially banned in Nigeria. But later, now, if the foundation be destroyed, what shall the righteous do? The foundation before border closure should be that you have excess supply. As we speak, we don't have excess supply. Even of rice. Rice paddy, we have shortage. So for rice that we consume, that is why people say that government deliberately wanted the prices of rice to increase. That is not true. There is no government that will want prices of commodity that most people consume to increase. But what we have not done, which is the sin of economics. And when you commit economic sins, you are going to pay for it. It's not like it's not religious thing that you can pray to God and God forgive you. For economic sins, you pay for it. So we have not done the needful. What we've done is to do border closure, hoping that private sector will be interested in production of rice and some other commodities.
Shouldn't the private sector have been interested?
Now, private sector should be interested. Coming to this show today, I spent almost an hour for a journey that should cost me, even with traffic, less than 20 minutes, because we did not envisage that articulated vehicle will cross the road. And you have that happening. So part of my time, I already have man-hour loss because of a sin I did not commit. And hundreds and thousands of vehicles are there as we speak.
Okay.
So private sector had a lot of issues because of infrastructural issues. We have power supply, as we know, when it comes to production, it's not function of what you generate, it's function of what you distribute. Because people cannot use what you generate, it is what you distribute that household and firms can use. Okay. We have approximately 3,000 to 4,000 megawatt power supply. How much of that can household and firms make use of, even in Lagos State?
Okay, let me also bring this to you. So there's a list of items that have been affected by this border closure. Was it an opportunity for Nigeria's productive sector to jump into?
Yes, it's an opportunity for Nigeria productive sector to jump into.
Beyond this infrastructural challenge that you mentioned, did you see maybe the CBN or some other agencies of government doing anything to help the productive
CBN is actually
sector?
helping with supporting farmers. You have Hancock Borrowers program. You have many other programs going on. But you see, CBN is limited in its own way because of its nature. The best CBN we give to you is financial support and maybe trainings and so on and so forth. But when it comes to land preparation, when it comes to land issue, when it comes to harvesting, there are so many things within the value chain of agriculture. And mark you, we kept talking about agriculture. Agriculture is important, but it's not the most important conversation. The most important conversation, countries where all of us would like to spend our holidays, and perhaps some people listening to us across the world today, is not a country that is agriculture driven.
One more.
Most of those countries, it's either tourism or manufacturing, name it, everywhere.
So what if we decide to go agriculture?
So if you decide to go agriculture, what is the lag? How long does it take us? Now, agriculture itself is not bad, but the method of practicing agriculture is a real conversation, because you can have manufacturing in agriculture, for instance. You have rice paddy, and what we are doing, we specialize in processing rice paddy to a consumable rice.
I believe that this conversation needs to continue some other time, but we really, because I see a lot of things coming from you. We really have to thank you at this moment, Mr. Paul Alaje.
Thank you so very
He's
much.
an economist. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much.
The conversation is not over. Please stay with us.